Okay, we'll wait for people to join. Hi, if you're watching the playback. Playback? Playback. Rerun? Not rerun. I don't know. That's YouTube telling me I'm live. Yes, I know I'm live, YouTube.
Shelters in DC were filling up.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'll get started in just a minute, letting people pop in as they will. Hello, how are you all? Hi, thank you for joining. I'll get started here in just a moment. Glad everyone is doing good. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm getting started in just a moment. I'll probably get started right after the 2-minute mark. I like to give people a chance to come on in. Hi, thank you for joining. Are you ready to see Biden fall? Did he fall recently? I didn't see him fall. Did I miss this? I hope I didn't miss it. Good morning. Oh, his approval rating. Well, I do believe that. I would believe it if he fell again. Not just in the approval rating, but in real life. Hello. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. First, I wanted to give you an update on this policy that Texas created. It was Governor Greg Abbott. So an update on his policy busing illegal immigrants to D.C. We're going to talk about this shooting that happened over the weekend, which was really strange. There was a man shooting into an apartment building, almost taking the lives of a woman and her small child, and ended up being in a 6-hour standoff with police. Ended up with that man not being alive. And of course, protesters came to protest the man and not the woman and child. So we'll talk about that. The woman actually went and stood up to them. And then there was a man who actually stopped a mass shooter. So we'll look at all of that and talk about it. And yes, I haven't looked at Biden's exact numbers at the moment, but I do believe he has fallen again, I'm sure. Last I checked, I think the numbers were like inflation was at 9.1% and Biden's approval rating was at 29%. I think that was Thursday or Friday. And I saw a comment that said, those numbers should probably be reversed. I said, you're probably right. Okay, so if you guys remember, Texas and Arizona, of course, being border states, are getting the brunt of Biden's open borders policy. A lot of their small towns are overrun with asylum seekers who need services. They need shelter, they need food, they need services. So a lot of their local resources are completely being overrun with people in the country seeking asylum. And keep in mind that the people that come over the border illegally to seek asylum, it's said about 90%, but I would actually think it's probably closer to 95%. But we'll just be safe. We'll go with 90. About 90% of people that come over the border illegally do not actually have a legitimate asylum case. They do not meet asylum status. And the way our current immigration system is at the moment, there is a loophole, basically. And that loophole is if you come over the border illegally and you get caught, we will process you, give you a court date. And on that court date, that's when your asylum case will be determined. That's when it will be determined by a judge whether or not you meet asylum status or not. And if you do, you can stay. If you don't, you can leave. The issue is the time between the processing and the court date, which is typically a few months. I would imagine right now how overrun it's been. It's probably closer to a year. It has to be. Maybe I'll try to look that up after I say this, but it's quite a long time. And so this little loophole in our system is, well, while they're waiting for their court date, you can just be in the U.S. They don't get deported back to their country to wait. There's really nothing else in place. It's called catch and release. So we catch you, give you that court date, you're released and free to go. Now you're in the interior of the U.S., and most of these individuals do not show up to their court dates. Why would they? They don't have to. No one's coming to find them. So that's what happens. And that's why there's a big problem with our immigration system, and so many people storm or come to the southern border and that's why you'll hear a lot of the people that are reporting on the border, they'll say it's odd. People are turning themselves into Border Patrol. That's because they know about catch and release. They know that they'll be given a court date and then they'll be let go. And now the way that we have it is they'll be bused to wherever they want to go, essentially. Like, these are your options. These are the destinations that you can go to. We'll fly you there. We'll bus you there. Here you go. And a lot of these places, local resources are being eaten up because what are you going to do once thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands of people enter this country? They have to go somewhere. And it's interesting because the mayor of DC is actually talking about the effects that this is having on DC. So as we know, to sort of alleviate the pressure that Texas and Arizona are seeing, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, started giving people coming over the border illegally, started giving them the option, would you like to be bused to DC? And many took him up on that option. And now this is what's happening in DC because of that. This is Mayor Browser of Washington, D.C., and I believe this is MSNBC. No, is it MSNBC? The Face Nation, whatever channel that's on. But here she is.
The Washington Post reported last week that homeless shelters in D.C. were filling up. And groups are getting overwhelmed by these buses that the governors of Texas and Arizona are sending here full of migrants. How significant is this influx? How many people?
Well, this is a very significant issue. We have for sure called on the federal government to work across state lines to prevent people from really being tricked into getting on buses. We think they're largely asylum seekers who are going to final destinations that are not Washington, D.C. I worked with the White House to make sure that FEMA provided a grant to a local organization that is providing services to folks. But I fear that they're being tricked into nationwide bus trips when their final destinations are places all over the United States of America.
They're going all over the United States and America. They're being given the option to go to Washington, D.C., but I don't know about you. Clearly I'm biased on this. I don't know about you, but to me that sounded a little bit like not in my backyard. Like, of course I support open borders. Of course we need to take them. We need to take in as many people as possible, but not in my city. And they're being tricked. They're being tricked to come to DC because their destinations are actually somewhere else. Oh, okay, so we should be paying for their destination to go somewhere else. And where else are they going to go? Where exactly are they going? What are they doing? And keep in mind that Mayor Browser, I'm pretty sure, because she's a pretty left-leaning Democrat, so the odds are that she supported Joe Biden during his campaign. And Joe Biden was very clear about his stance on borders. He wanted them open. He basically wanted the southern border open, and he ran on that. So she's getting exactly what, she endorsed, exactly what she more than likely voted for. And now she doesn't want it because it's in her backyard. And Bill Melugin, who's with Fox LA and has been in Texas and Arizona, actually now he's with Fox National now, but he used to be with Fox LA, and then he got a promotion to National Fox. Anyway, his main assignment since he's worked with Fox National is to be on the border. So since Joe Biden took office, Bill Melugin has been in Texas and Arizona on the border. And he responded to this and he said, DC is getting a small example of what tiny Texas and Arizona border towns have had to deal with every single day with far less capacity. And that's true. At least DC has more of the resources to deal with these things. But imagine this happening to towns of just a few thousand people, and then all of a sudden you're getting in hundreds and hundreds of migrants. It completely overwhelms those towns. That's why you saw all of these counties in Texas get together and ask Governor Abbott to declare an emergency, because all of these towns, their resources were being overrun. And when you declare an emergency, you get extra funds by FEMA to help with some of these resources and to help alleviate what these towns and counties are facing. But it's wild because I think it was Thomas Sowell who says you can't have a welfare state and open borders. You can't. Resources are finite. And it's so sad because I know that Washington, D.C. has a homeless problem. A lot of these big cities and a lot of these cities that call themselves sanctuary cities have a large homeless problem, and these shelters that would have been available to their very own homeless population, which I don't know how much has it increased, are now being overrun by asylum seekers who are here because of the open borders policy that you support. So you can't have it both ways. And that's what's so frustrating about a lot of these Democrats and their sort of luxury beliefs. They can have these beliefs when they're sitting behind their house, behind a gated community with security. They can have these beliefs because it doesn't touch them. It doesn't affect them. But as soon as it starts to touch or affect them, all of a sudden they're being tricked into coming here. No, this is a result of a policy that you support, and now it's in your backyard and you're not very happy about it. Now you have to see the reality of the policies that you support. This is the reality. If it's not you, it's someone else. And now, now I see. So now your solution is for more federal funding, right? More funding by FEMA to alleviate this issue that has been created by this administration. So not only are we coming out of a pandemic, not only are we seeing record high inflation, 9.1%, the worst it's been in 40 years. And now, not only are you supporting a policy that allows this to happen, you're saying that the government needs to put even more money at it to fix it. Isn't that why we're in this problem in the first place? Too much spending. And the solution to everything is don't. This is Gavin Newsom too. This is how he fixes homelessness in California. They don't ever actually fix anything. They don't offer actual solutions to the problem. They just want more money thrown at it to make it look like they're kind of sort of doing something. They want more government spending thrown at it, whilst the problem gets worse. Because notice, she didn't actually offer a solution. She didn't say, we need to close the border, something is going on at the border. She didn't offer any actual solutions. She just called for more funding to be thrown at it, more government funding, FEMA funding, or for the migrants to go somewhere else. Interesting. Not classic, not NIMBY, not in my backyard. I see what people were saying. Someone said, when you start seeing tent cities all over DC and mostly illegal immigrants, how fast that wall get built? Well, this is almost why it was done. And it's really sad because these are actual people, these the individuals coming over the border illegally. Yes, they're here illegally, but they're still people, and they're just being played as political pawns by the right and left, and it's really sad. But it is true that that's one of the reasons why this policy of asking people whether or not they wanted to be bused to DC was because a lot of the people with all these open border policy ideas, they're all in DC. So they're not actually, they have the luxury of not actually experiencing the reality of the very policies that they publicly endorse and run on. So he was like, you know what? I'm gonna give these migrants an option. Would you like to be bused to DC? And if they say yes, they can go there. And it's really sad that it is the way that it is. It's like the whole Democratic stance now is let's create more problems and then spend more money on the problems that we created that literally no one asked for. Okay, I also wanted to see what's happening in Washington D.C., not Washington D.C., San Francisco. So San Francisco is where they just recalled their super progressive, soft on crime district attorney, Chesa Boudin, and they reappointed a woman named Brooke Jenkins. And what's really cool about her is that she was actually a prosecutor working under Chesa Boudin, and then she decided to quit her job to give herself full time to the Recall Chesa Boudin campaign, and it worked. And after that, the mayor in San Francisco, London is her name, actually appointed Brooke Jenkins the new district attorney. So I thought that was really cool because she quit everything to dedicate herself fully to that campaign. So I think that's really cool. But this is what she just did. So San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins on Friday fired 15 staffers less than a week after replacing the city's former DA. She said, "Today I made a difficult but important changes to my management team and staff that will help advance my vision to restore a sense of safety in San Francisco by holding serious and repeat offenders accountable and implementing smart criminal justice reforms." I wonder if the people that she fired were acting more like public defenders. I'm curious. Jenkins, who helped lead the campaign to oust her predecessor, held a horrible, icy, uncomfortable, and insane 20-minute meeting with most of Boudin's staff almost immediately after the city's mayor, London Breed, swore Jenkins in earlier this month. During the meeting, Jenkins said approximately 25 employees that she would not fire anyone that day, but planned on meeting with staffers for a possible reshuffling to the office. Through Jenkins' reshuffling, managing attorney Arcela Hurtado reportedly lost her job. Hurtado served as a representative for the Innocence Commission, which Boudin established in 2020 to review cases of those who were wrongfully convicted. In a recent interview with KQED, Jenkins said she would support the commission. However, Laura Bozolin, chair of the commission and law professor at the University of San Francisco, told San Francisco Gate that Jenkins' decision to fire Hurtado is deeply concerning, considering Mayor Breed's brother could receive leniency with possible release from prison following his conviction for carjacking and manslaughter. Mayor Breed's brother? Possible release from prison following his conviction for carjacking and manslaughter. I did not know that. Okay. Other staffers booted by Jenkins were the former DA's chief of staff, Kate Chatfield, who tweeted on Friday that Boudin's reformations would disappear. The Resentencing Innocence Commission Unit gone, Chatfield said. Police accountability gone. Data and transparency gone. Political corruption investigation gone. Champion for victims and children demoted. She added champion for humane, hugely popular and successful treatment programs gone. Latina outreach gone. Support for trafficked children gone. Okay, well, clearly these things weren't working. Like, I mean, they might have like really good names, but clearly they weren't working. I think the residents of San Francisco might think differently. Jenkins' reshuffling also included Tal Clement, Assistant Chief of General Crimes, who tweeted he would never stop fighting for real criminal justice reform following his firing. Jenkins dismissed Bodine's communication director and policy advisor, Rachel Marshall, the former director of data analytics and research, Michaela Robinowitz, and the managing attorney of the Independent Investigations Bureau, Lateef Gray. In a statement, Jenkins said she would do everything she could to restore accountability and consequences to the city's criminal justice system while using progressive reforms. So it's actually interesting because she does see herself as a progressive, but she also sees the importance for public safety. She said, I have seen firsthand the imbalances and disproportionate impacts of our criminal justice system. During a press conference, she called San Francisco's a city of second chances. But the truth is, we have to draw a line with people who choose hate, violence, and a life of crime. I want to make clear, holding offenders accountable does not prelude us from moving forward with vital and important reforms to our criminal justice system. She served as assistant DA in the city's DA's office for approximately 7 years until resigning during Bodine's reign. Noting dissatisfaction with the direction of the office, Mayor Breed said she hears from frustrated residents daily about feeling unsafe and the city's accountability. Under Bodine's rule, the former DA eliminated cash bail for suspects, directed his department to refuse to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement, and prosecuted fewer shoplifters. Homicides and property crimes, including burglaries and car thefts, have spiked over the past 2 years, and Bodine's handling of suspected fentanyl dealers drew criticism. And that's a really big deal, you all. Fentanyl, I believe, kills over 150 people a day. Like, it's a big deal. Although Bodine, who gained support from left-wing billionaires George Soros, admitted he'd made mistakes, Bodine blamed his recall on right-wing billionaires. So that's typically what they do. They all use the same playbook, all of them. Whenever there's a recall or criticism, even though the majority of this comes from Democrats, whenever there's a criticism or a recall or anything like that, it's always a far right. It's either right-wing extremist, in this instance, right-wing billionaires. It's always right-wing, even though the numbers do not add up. Because in order to kick off the election with Chesa Boudin for him to be recalled, they actually needed more signatures than they even have Republicans in the city of San Francisco. San Francisco is an overwhelmingly blue city, and the majority of the people involved in the recall, I believe, are Democrats. I'm sure there are right-wing people, but a lot of these are Democrats. And even Brooke Jenkins herself, the new DA, she considers herself progressive. Like, they just want to live in a safe city. This is what people don't understand. You know, you can go on with these crazy policy ideas if you want, because most people aren't paying attention. Most people aren't paying attention, especially when it comes to local politics. But what does get their attention is when they're looking around and they're all of a sudden like, whoa, I don't feel safe. What the heck is going on? I used to be able to walk down that road. Now I can't anymore. I used to be able to not have to fear that my car is going to get broken into every day. Now I don't have that luxury anymore. What in the heck is going on? And then all of a sudden they start paying attention to local politics and they don't like it. So, because people, Democrats, Republican, independent, politically homeless, it doesn't matter. Everyone does think that the government should uphold one of its very basic functions, and that's to provide public safety. That's it. That's one of the most basic functions of government. And when you start messing with that, the same with all the school boards, when you start messing with people's sense of safety, when you start messing with their kids, then it gets real. But again, like, this is like normal criticism that comes from normal, commonsensical individuals, and they will call it right-wing attacks. Always the same playbook. Okay, so now I want to get into these two stories that happened over the weekend. These are two different shootings that happened, but they're both very different in very interesting ways. And I kind of wanted to compare the two because it just shows how sort of upside down and backwards as a society we are a little bit. The first one actually happened in Indiana, and this was a man that stopped a mass shooter. So it says a mass shooter at a mall in Greenwood, Indiana, was shot dead on Sunday by an armed civilian after firing into a crowded food court, killing 3 and wounding 2. According to Greenwood Police Chief Jim Ison, the man entered the mall with a rifle and several magazines and began firing into the crowd at the mall's food court. Police first responded to a shooting at about 6 p.m. The shooter was killed by an as of yet unidentified good guy with the gun. The shooting follows in the wake of a series of mass killings that have reignited the contentious gun debate here in the United States, including massacres at elementary schools in Uvalde, Texas, a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, and an Independence Day parade in Highland Park, Illinois. We're just sickened by yet another type of incidents like this in our country. The incident also follows an assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. I think I'm saying it correct. Abe? I'm sorry. I might not have said that correctly. Shinzo Abe. I think that's it. By a lone gunman. Japan has some of the strictest firearm regulations in the world. Police have reportedly confiscated a suspicious backpack found on the scene, and the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police are investigating the incident alongside other law enforcement. So it's really interesting. One thing to point out that is true about Japan, they do have some of the strictest gun laws, and I believe the gun that individual had was homemade. So here's the thing, whenever the gun debate comes up, this is also used as an argument for abortion, because people like, how can you be pro-life and also be pro-2A? And my response to that is, do you know what 2A is? It's the right to defend yourself. It's the right to bear arms. It's the right to defend your life. In both cases, you are pro defense of life. Are there bad men that use guns to do terrible, awful things? Yes, but I think that statistically more guns save lives every year in the U.S. than take lives. And here you have a good guy with a gun that stopped a mass shooter. Who knows how many more people this individual would have killed, but this guy stopped him. If he didn't have a gun, would more people not be here? How long would that guy have gone on? And we see down below that we can't always trust law enforcement. And I'm a big back the blue person. I'm a big defender of law enforcement all the time. But in this instance, in Uvalde, Texas, they were incompetent. This particular group of police officers were completely and 100% incompetent, in my opinion, and sat outside the classroom. I believe it was like 41 minutes, 38 to 41 minutes without going in, while this person was taking the lives of children. So you can't always trust that the police are going to be there and have your back. But it's just really interesting to me, that whole debate. And here you have Japan, who the strictest gun laws in the world, this individual was still able to build something and take out the life of their prime minister. Knives kill people, acid kills people, chemicals kill people, poisons kill people. You can't just ban everything. It was funny. I was listening to a parent talk the other day, and they're like, when you have a child and now all of a sudden you're worrying about your child every 5 seconds and thinking that can kill my child, that can kill my child. Literally anything can kill you. And it's unfortunate when people do terrible things, but that doesn't mean to take the right away from other people to be able to defend themselves. And so anytime anyone says, how can you be pro 2A and pro life? Say that. Be like, I'm pro. Do you know what 2A is? It's the right to protect your life. That's exactly what it is, to protect life. The right to bear arms and defend yourself. All right, now going on the flip side of that, this is another situation that happened. Now, in this situation, it was a good guy with a gun who was able to stop this shooting that was happening. And now we have a completely other story with a complete different response by the public. Sorry, I thought I heard something. So this happened in Minnesota. You might have seen this video go around. It went viral. I'll play you a little bit of it. So a rally for a Minnesota man killed by police took a dramatic turn Saturday when the mom he had shot at hours before he was fatally shot crashed the protest to call Andrew Tekel Sundberg a bad guy. In a dramatic scene caught on video outside the apartment complex where Sundberg, 20, was killed, an anguished woman identified as Arabella Yarbrough, 24, demanded to know why Sundberg was deemed a good guy all of a sudden. She accused Sundberg, who lived in the same complex, of nearly offing her and her children in the incident last week. She said, "I have black women," she shouted over the protest leader who was using a megaphone to rally a small crowd together outside some apartments. She said, "I am a woman of color. I would have lost my life. Would you guys do this for me?" "Yes, ma'am," the leader replies. "If I would have died, would he be the bad guy?" she continues. "Why is he not a bad guy now?" she said. Yarbrough explained that she had been cooking dinner for her children when bullets came through their apartment door, adding that there were shell casings all over the hallway outside the incident. Sundberg was killed early Thursday after a standoff that began late Wednesday. He allegedly shot into the apartment where Yarbrough lived with her 2 children, then fired again at cops who rushed the family to safety. Sundberg's father, Mike, had tried to help negotiate the surrender of his son, who had barricaded himself in the apartment, but the 6-hour standoff ended at 4:30 a.m. when 2 police snipers on a rooftop across the street fatally shot him. On Saturday, the elder Sundberg, who was at the protest, was seen trying to comfort Yarbrough as she rallied against the demonstrators. Sundberg's mother, Cindy Sundberg, said that her son, who they adopted from Ethiopia, was experiencing a mental health crisis when police responded to a report of shots fired in his apartment building, according to the video released. The Minneapolis Police Department reported that a mother with 2 children called claiming that someone had shot into her apartment and that officers witnessed additional shots when they arrived on the third floor building. MPD crisis team negotiations and SWAT responded and attempted negotiations throughout the night and early hours. So they negotiated for 6 hours and allowed his father to come and help negotiate with the boy. The attempts included identifying and calling the man's cell phone, as well as bringing the man's parents to the scene to help. The shooting of Sundberg, a black man, has further inflamed race relations in Minneapolis, where 2 years ago, George Floyd was killed by a police officer in an incident that had touched off a summer of rioting around the nation. The police officer who killed Floyd was prosecuted and found guilty of murder. The Sundbergs told reported they don't believe police would have shot off their white biological children in the same situation. Everybody knows that it had been a white person in that building. They would have talked him out. They would have waited. Protesters on Saturday demanded that the police release video from the incident. The Minneapolis City's Attorney Office is reviewing the body camera footage of the shooting. It will be shown to the family first before it's released to the public. All right, there is so much to unpack here. So, what happened was the Sundberg, the 20-year-old who was shot and killed by police, was shooting randomly in this woman's apartment. I don't know if he was shooting into other apartments yet, but I saw the pictures. You can see bullets in her bathroom coming through her front door. Lots of destruction. So it was pretty bad. She has 2 small children there. She's there cooking dinner. Any of them could have been killed. We know this happens all the time. Little Legend Telefaro was killed while napping in his bed in his apartment building by a bullet that came through. So it's very dangerous, and several came through. Police showed up. The individual started shooting at police and then barricaded himself in an apartment for 6 hours. They tried to negotiate him. His parents came and attempted to negotiate him, and none of this worked. Now, obviously, we're still finding things out, but to me, the first gut reaction of people is to say, after all of that we do know, they spent 6 hours negotiating with him. This person was armed and dangerous, already shot several times, could have killed someone. They were just lucky in the apartment and none of the bullets hit them. And the first reaction of some of these Black Lives Matter activists is to go out and say that he should be alive. So I'll play you some of the audio of the woman. So she's the victim in this. So she's the woman that was in her apartment that had the bullet holes coming through. And now they're protesting outside of her complex because remember, he lived in the same complex as she did. It's loading. Just hold on one second. Let me see if I can get it on here. Now it's not playing. See if I'll get it. Well, while we're waiting for that, this is also interesting. So this is what's also interesting about this whole thing, because there were 2 GoFundMe accounts made. There was a GoFundMe account for this injury. Okay, now I don't even know where to start. I used to be a mental health worker, all right? And they're saying that the police should have negotiated more. They should have tried. I mean, the person's parents were there. That's what you do as a mental health worker. You sit and you try to talk to people. You try and de-escalate them. The individual's parents were there. That's usually like when I would work with kids and they were having, a meltdown or some sort of mental health crisis, and we always had a list of coping mechanisms or coping skills for them. And a lot of kids had call my mom or call my dad on their coping skills. So that's what we would do. What's going to help you right now? What can help calm you down? What do you need right now? I want to talk to my mom. Okay. Let's get you on the phone with your mom. Let's see if this works. And it sounds like that's exactly what they were doing for 6 hours. And this is a person that was armed and already shot randomly. But of course, the Black Lives Matter activists, they automatically take the side of him. The woman and child, disregard them. And the woman made a really good point when she was yelling back at the protesters, if he would have killed me, I would not have mattered to you. And she's absolutely right. If I didn't get a chance to call the police, if he would have killed me, I would not have mattered to you. Even though I'm a woman of color is basically what she was saying. And she's absolutely right, because that would just be another urban death, and those do not matter. All the people that get shot in Chicago do not matter. All the little kids that get shot do not matter. Another example, and she just, whether she realized it or not, just called out the hypocrisy of the Black Lives Matter activists. But this isn't new to me. I've known they were fraudulent from the very beginning. Remember back in 2020 on the 4th of July, an 8-year-old little girl in Atlanta, Georgia, by the name of Sequoia Turner, was shot and killed at a Black Lives Matter protester at the hands of another Black protester. She got caught in the crossfire of people shooting that were at this demonstration, and the only reason she was around the demonstration is because they had closed off the road where they were protesting, and her mom, they were on their way back from fireworks, and her mom was trying to U-turn to get out of there. So none of this would have ever happened if these people weren't out demonstrating. And they never caught the person. I believe they just now caught the person, but they had to raise thousands of dollars to put billboards all over Atlanta trying to catch the person that had the gun that killed their daughter, Sequoia's parents, because nobody at that protest would come forward with information. They were begging people for information. So all these people that were at the BLM protest, protesting for that Black Lives Matter, this happened at their very own protest, and all of a sudden this death doesn't matter. That's exactly what the mom was saying. If he would have actually ended my life and ended the lives of my children, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't be out here protesting because you only care about some lives. And this is what's crazy too. So, of course, right away, a GoFundMe page went out for the attacker. And it had 10 times the amount that the mom and children's GoFundMe had. She had 1,300. He had 14,000. Now, thankfully, it's gone. His is still up. His has like 20,000 now. Hers has, I think, over 50,000. I retweeted that if you want to go on my Twitter to find those GoFundMes and see. But it said, Minnesota, can we help this mom and 2 kids who were victimized by Andrew Sundberg? MN Safety will match up to $500 if you retweet with proof of donation. Currently, the shooter's GoFundMe is 10 times greater than his victims. That's since changed. Even if you don't have money, but retweet any tweet in this thread, we'll donate $1 for each retweet, up to 500 max. Here's the direct link to the fundraiser. So that's where we are as a society, just backwards, and where this activism is backwards. But they did it all summer. This is one of the reasons why I've never been down with Black Lives Matter. They're completely hypocritical, and they only care about some lives, and only when it's politically convenient for them and for their group. They haven't actually done anything. I haven't seen any community centers, any after school centers, any money going to any charities that are actually helping people. I've seen nothing, except I have seen the dramatic wealth increase with all of the co-founders, who, by the way, are abolitionists. Patrice Concolors, I was at Barnes & Noble the other day and realized that she has a new book out, and it's called The 12 Steps to Abolition. So, yes, they are actually ideological, and they are abolitionist. So they don't just want to defund the police. They want to abolish the police. They want to abolish everything. Is that what it's called? 12 Steps to Abolition? Hold on. I should have bought it, to be honest with you. Oh, it's the Abolitionist Handbook. Sorry. The Abolitionist Handbook. That's what it's called. Ew, I'm on her website. I wonder if, is that video playing yet? Okay, this is what happened outside of the mom's house when she confronted the protesters. So this is that whole story. I think she's about to confront, but we'll listen to that.
And we're demanding the release of the body cam footage.
That's her yelling. So she's is that his dad? So the leader is talking on the megaphone, you can hear him, and then you can hear her in the background yelling. So that's the mom, and she's saying, he tried to kill me and my kids.
Yes, ma'am.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. She's saying, if he was still alive, would he be a bad guy? Is he a bad guy now? Why isn't he a bad guy? And she's absolutely right. Imagine being traumatized like this, having bullets come through your home, and then people are protesting the criminal. I would be mad too. I mean, this is a very raw, it's like gut wrenching to listen to her. I can imagine how mad she is. Having to be re-traumatized, thinking that the world is supposed to make sense, that good is bad and bad is bad, and then having this happen to you and seeing a bunch of people out there protesting for him. She's saying, what about my black children? What about their lives? What about their sense of safety?
We're here just to respect life, any life, and we're glad that we're not condoning.
I don't know who's clapping. I can't figure that out. It's not showing on camera who's clapping. But I don't know if you can hear it, but some of these people are saying, but you're still alive though. You're still, wait, what? Wait, what? So now she should feel guilty, or she should feel like, oh, because she's still alive? Well, she almost wasn't alive because of him. Everyone wants to be safe. Yeah, everyone wants to be safe, and everyone wants to feel safe, and everyone deserves that. But guess what? What I say is, when you cross this line, now you're in my area of rights. Your rights stop where someone else's begin. He infringed on her rights and the rights of the safety of everyone around him. Those bullets could have hit anyone. And thankfully, they didn't. But how do they know they wouldn't have? This person was armed. They negotiated with this person, it seems, for 6 hours. We still have a lot of information that's going to probably be coming out about this, so I want to be careful what we say. But for them to automatically jump on all of this, not knowing anything, not having any disregard for the victim herself and what she wants and what she thinks. I often thought about that in, what was the one person's name? The Kenosha. I can't remember his name in Kenosha. But that's what I always thought about that situation. Imagine being the woman who called the cops on him, who feared for her safety, and then to see all of these people protesting in the streets for him.
But we just want full police. We want accountability.
And this makes me so mad too, because they're like, we want accountability of the police officers. The same people right here are probably the same people who were outraged over what happened in Uvalde. And I am too. I think that, in my opinion, That was a clear case of incompetence when we saw that video footage came out in Uvalde. So the same people that are outraged that police wouldn't act quicker in Uvalde are saying that this shouldn't have happened, that they need more accountability. Okay, if something comes out within these 6 hours and where we can look at that and say, wow, that was actually what the police did right there was wrong. Like if something comes out and you have actual evidence, this is what exactly happened and this is why the officer was wrong in this decision. But you have none of that. You just have a bunch of people walking in on an assumption with a clear disregard for the life of the woman and her children, which this is such a clear example of how Black Lives Matter don't care. It's some Black lives. It's not all.
We're not condoning. We're not condoning. We're not condoning. We're not condoning any behavior whatsoever. We're not. If he was shooting, doing something, or putting people in harm's way, we're not condoning that at all. But we're just saying we want the same treatment for us as they give white people.
And by the way, the police were there. They were called by her. They're protecting her and her children. Again, it's like, do they not matter? Does their protection not matter? They're not making any sense. And I try so hard. I'm trying to hear something that like kind of makes sense so I can sort of understand where they're coming from, and I can't.
We want the same treatment for Techley as the person that they gave in Faribault, Minnesota, that they gave to Dylan Brooks. That's all we're asking for. And I'm glad that accountability. Nobody deserves to die.
And this is so damaging to young people because now, like, you say you want accountability from who? Nobody deserved to die. I agree. Like, I don't think the whole situation is so sad. I wish he wouldn't have put himself in that position. I wish he wouldn't have shot and traumatized this woman. I wish when police got there, he just dropped the weapon and surrendered. I wish a lot of things, but those things didn't happen. And there are consequences for your choices. And your rights stop when you infringe on someone else's rights. Your rights stop where mine begin. You put your hands on someone or you threaten someone's safety, you just handed over your rights at that point. And the same is true for me or anyone else that does anything dangerous or violent to another person. I don't like any of it. But I obviously can't control another person putting themselves in that situation.
The police are supposed to make an arrest and hold people accountable for their crimes.
They couldn't make the arrest. So the Black Lives Matter person is saying the police are supposed to make an arrest and hold people accountable for their crimes. How are they supposed to go in there and make an arrest when the person has barricaded themselves and is armed and dangerous? How are they supposed to do that? This is what makes me mad, because they take away all personal responsibility and they are only hurting young men. Young men that are hearing this thinking like, wow, I never have to have personal responsibility. Everything I do is justified. I'm not, No, they should have personal responsibility and know that if you put yourself in that situation, this is what's likely to happen.
So if he was shooting, he should have been arrested and convicted and charged.
If he was shooting, he should have been arrested and how are you going to arrest someone who is actively shooting? Or who is threatening to shoot, who is barricaded in a room?
Convicted. It's not the police's job to execute people. We don't have the death penalty in Minnesota.
Does he know the definition of an execution? We don't know anything. We don't know how this happened. An execution and having a 6-hour standoff with somebody who is armed are two different things.
Again, we're not excusing anything that happened.
Okay. She's saying go home. And think about it too, like, what is she supposed to tell her kids? Like, why are they all, because this is in front of her apartment building. That's why she's right there. Her kids are like, why are they all out there, Mom? Oh, they're actually supporting the person who almost offed us yesterday. You know, that scary man who was shooting bullets into our apartment? Yeah, they're not here for us, supporting us. They're actually here supporting him. So, jeez. Yeah, it's the lady in the flower dress. There is a lady who called police officers because a man was shooting bullets into her apartment, and she has 2 small children. They were obviously afraid for their lives. So the police officers came. The man started shooting at police officers and then barricaded himself in an apartment in the same building. He lives in the same building. And police came. There was a 6-hour standoff. And then unfortunately at the end of that, he was fatally shot by the police. And now Black Lives Matter are out protesting in front of the apartment building, which happens to be the same apartment building that the woman who called the police lives at. And now she's outside yelling at the Black Lives Matter protesters saying, y'all go home. What about me and my life? I'm a woman of color. I have 2 black children. What about our lives? Do you guys not care? And she goes, if we would have been killed by this man, you wouldn't be out here. And they said, yes, we would. And we all know, no, they wouldn't, because they don't care about urban deaths like that. They don't care when things happen. They only care about some lives. And that's why she's mad. And she also says, I don't think we heard it yet. I'll play it again in just a minute. But she also says, this isn't George Floyd. This isn't the same thing. This is different. This person was armed and almost killed me and my kids. This is very different. So this is a woman who supported George Floyd, but even at this time, she's like, what are y'all doing? And imagine how awful that is for that to have just happened to her, and all these people are out right in front of her apartment building supporting the person who tried to kill her. So that's who's yelling. No, yeah, all you guys are frauds. She's saying that all you guys out here, he's been there for 2 years. We've known he has a mental health problem, and none of you guys were out here. They're saying that he was having a mental health crisis, and this is why it happened. But again, you guys, you have to understand, whether you're mentally ill or not, it doesn't, in that instance, it doesn't matter. If you are threatening the life and safety of another person, I'm sorry, you guys, but this is reality. And this is what really bothers me about Black Lives Matter. If you are threatening the safety and the life of another person, you are now foregoing your rights. That's what you are doing, because now the other person's life being saved is more important than the attacker who just gave up their own rights because now they are trying to attack or end somebody else's life. People need to understand this. And even if you work in mental health, you have the rights to put your hands on another individual if they are threatening the safety of someone else or themselves. If they are a direct, immediate threat to safety of themselves or someone else, you have to put hands on. And people need to understand this. And I wish this could be where the conversation is instead of this, because this is getting nowhere. This BLM rhetoric is literally getting nowhere. All it is doing is hurting the very community that they say they want to help. See, and she said he had 6 hours to choose. I don't know if she said it. She might say this again. But I think this is so important to listen to what she's saying because she's absolutely right. And she's experiencing everything we've talked about and why this is such bullcrap. This entire organization. So now I'm figuring it out. So she was returning home with her kids to get some items out of her apartment, which I'm imagining she's not staying there right now because of what just happened. So she was on her way home to get items from her apartment and was, I don't think they were intentionally blocking her, but was essentially blocked by a Black Lives Matter demonstration. And they're there for the man that is basically responsible for the reason she can't even stay in her apartment right now. And almost ending her life and the life of her children. And she made a great point. She's like, she goes, this is so powerful. I don't know if she's going to say it or if we didn't get it, but I do remember her saying, I had only minutes and seconds to know if I was going to die or not. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice in the matter. Those bullets were coming through my apartment building. He had 6 hours to decide if he wanted to live and work with police, and he chose not to. She didn't get that choice. That choice wasn't there for her. If she got hit by one of those bullets, then she got hit. She had no choice. Her children had no choice. He took that choice away from him. But he was already awarded a lot more than she was because cops gave him the choice. They gave him 6 hours of negotiation. That is a long time. Even allowing his parents to attempt to negotiate with him from what I'm seeing. And this is what they do all the time. They go out and they start demonstrating. That's why I try to be careful about what I'm saying so far, because we're obviously still getting information. But before the information is already out there, you see Black Lives Matter in the streets. That's why there's so many false conceptions of these narratives, or so many people don't actually know what was happening. Because Black Lives Matter, as soon as something happens, before they have any information, they're out in the streets protesting. Even in cases, so there's many of these cases where what happened is incredibly unfortunate and incredibly tragic, but was justified. So many of these instances where what happened was justified, Black Lives Matter is already out in the street. They're already doing what they're doing and spreading a false narrative. And so when the truth eventually does come out, nobody cares about the truth. And everyone is still stuck on this narrative that they originally heard. And this, one of really big examples of that was Breonna Taylor. I've told you guys this before. I lived in the summer of 2020. I lived in Protest Central. Protest Central. And one day my boyfriend was picking me up to go to his place at the beach for the weekend to get away from Protest Central. And while he was coming to pick me up, and a protest that was it was like a few blocks away from where I lived. Anyway, it had just been ending, so I was getting some of the spillover of people just like walking through my neighborhood to go to their cars or to go out after whatever it was that they were doing. But I was getting a lot of that spillover, and I remember seeing a sign, and it was a Breonna Taylor sign, and it said she was asleep in her bed. And I thought to myself, oh boy. And at that point, I don't remember the exact date of this protest, but at that point, the information had already been out for months and months about what actually happened with Breonna Taylor. So we very much knew that Breonna Taylor was not asleep in her bed. She was standing up in the hallway. But this person was still going with the original rhetoric that came out from Black Lives Matter and left leaning news outlets. And that's how powerful that original messaging can be. The truth had been out for months at that point, but this person was still going with what they originally heard, even though that had been widely debunked and their correct information had already been publicly available. And I just remember thinking, like, man, like, I just, like, that was such a perfect example of all of this, like, virtue signaling, going out and protesting that we're seeing right now. And, by the way, everyone has a right to protest. I love that people go out and protest, even if it's something I disagree with, as long as you're being safe. I don't mind it at all. I'm a people person. I like having people around, even if it's people I don't agree with. But I do remember thinking, like, so I'm all for her coming out and protesting, but I just remember thinking, like, gosh, this is such a perfect example of sort of my generation and where we are right now. How this person was so into what happened, or so, like, passionate about getting justice for Breonna Taylor, made a sign, came out to a protest, drove there, all this stuff, yet didn't even have the basic facts of the information, or of the information that's available. Like, if I'm passionate about something and I'm going out and protesting, I'm going to know everything about that thing. Every time information becomes available, I'm going to be looking it up. I'm going to be looking at both sides of the argument, all the facts. Like, I'm going to be on it, and I'm going to know what I'm talking about, because when you're passionate about something, you want to know all the ins and outs. But that sign and a lot of the protesting that I did see, it wasn't necessarily people that were passionate about things or about change. It was people kind of grifting off a message, and no one really even knew the truth or knew why they were there in the first place. It's a bunch of people that are just doing the current thing, right? And that's what's so frustrating to me, and like my generation, and this all of this protesting that we see. There are genuine people there. I do totally believe that. We probably disagree on like everything, but that's okay. But there are a lot of people there that you ask them like two questions, and all of a sudden their entire stance, their entire ideology just falls to pieces, because it's just this big virtue signal. Like, all of it. It's like, I'm down with the current thing. I'm at the current protest. I'm progressive. I'm better than you because I care. That's like what it's all about. It's so silly. It's silly. Okay, well, I want to hear more of this, because this is pretty... It's pretty deep for me. Oh. Oh, hell no. So this Black Lives Matter protester is trying to sit there and say, I've lived in apartment buildings too my whole life. This is just hear me out, okay? This is just annoying apartment behavior. Victim blaming. Now they're literally sitting out here victim blaming. Unbelievable. Literally victim blaming. And she's like, no, hear me out. And the woman, the victim, is like, are you serious? These people they have absolutely no principles. And this woman, the look on her face is disgust. Because honestly, this type of stuff, it really does like disgust me at my core. Because not only are these people so against you, they will sit there and tell you that you're wrong and it's okay. Don't worry. I do care. You're actually the one that's wrong. And they will gaslight you. Ew. It's disturbing on a deep level. And you see the pure disgust on the victim's face. She's just disgusted. And I don't blame her. I'm going to see if I can show you here. Oh, that's okay. See, let me show you her face. So this is the victim right here. And you can see she just looks absolutely disgusted at what this Black Lives Matter activist is trying to explain to her, and it's just not working. I mean, that's just how diluted their ideology is, because it's not based in actual principle or actually caring about anything or actually wanting any change. It's all a grift, and it's all a giant virtue signal. She is not having it. And I know exactly, I don't know what she's feeling. What she's feeling right now is far more dramatic. But I at least know that feeling of disgust. And I can just imagine the level of disgust she feels after going through what she's been through. Also dealing with this person who is clearly mentally ill for several years. Well, yeah. So she's saying, I'm licensed to carry. If I would have shot back and I would have killed him, would you guys care? Or would I be the suspect? What did we just talk about? The bodega guy in New York, who somebody came behind his counter and was attacking him. And he stabbed the person and had to go to Rikers Island. I believe he made bail, but they're still charging him with murder. I know that there are groups trying to get the DA to drop that charge, but he's being charged with murder. She's so right. She said, if the same happened to you, we would be out here. And she said, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't care. Not like this. You guys wouldn't be out here. You wouldn't even know the story. She's right. Can I talk about that? Can I just talk about exactly, actually, yes. Can I tell you about that? Can I please tell you about the Lord and Jesus, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Please don't run away from me. And that's what that reminds me of. How condescending. I know, no, we do know all about that, actually. Yes, I took a course on that at university, and I did learn about that. So let me tell you about it. I know you're probably not educated, and that's okay. It's okay. Let me educate you. If you want, we can spend time together, and I will educate you on social justice, because clearly you are lacking. And if you just understand, if I can just explain it to you, I think you'll feel much better. That's why these people, like, it's like a cult. It is. It's like a cult. And they just proved it.
Shows you that I'm hurt all around.
said, now I can't get my stuff because all of you guys are in the parking lot, and now my kids have to see you celebrate a man who tried to kill them. She also said, now her kids are in the back seat. But I think what happened is she just lost it because she went back to try and get her stuff from her house. And you can hear how angry she is. I think I would be so angry too. And I mean, I remember seeing all of the protesting and seeing the destruction that a lot of it caused, and then seeing politicians, like seeing it real life. And then seeing all of these politicians sort of condone it all summer. It was just bizarre. It was a world that I didn't understand. And it was a bizarre world, and it was a scary world because I had always, like, as dirty as politics have gotten, usually we all agreed that violence and destruction is bad, right? But now all of a sudden that wasn't happening. And that was troubling to me on a pretty deep, it was troubling. Like, it was very troubling to see. But to have someone actually target you violently, and then to see an entire group of people out there for the person who tried to attack you violently, potentially kill you. I can't even imagine how troubling that is. And then to have a young child's mind see this, what that would do to them when they're figuring out the world, when they're trying to understand the world, and okay, this is how things work, that's what they're learning, and then to experience something like this, it's pretty crazy. And what she did say was, and this again is a huge problem with Black Lives Matter, the organization, because she pointed out something. She was like, he's been here for 2 or 3 years acting severely mentally ill. Where were you all then? Where was your support then? When he was alive, when you could have actually helped him, where were you then? And this is my problem with Black Lives Matter, is because they come out, they raise money, they protest in the streets all the time when something like this happens. But what do they do to prevent this from happening? What have they ever done to prevent this? After school programs, Big Brother, Big Sister programs, community centers, there's all kinds of things that they could do to enhance the life of people that are already here, so they don't resort to doing things like this, or they stay out of the gang life, or they stay out of trouble, or maybe they just need somewhere to go after school and hang out and get their homework done. But they won't do anything. There's no preventative measures. There's always, let's just go out and protest and raise money whenever something like this happens without even knowing the facts. And now you have here, the victim is trying to go home and get her stuff and can't even get to her home because all of these protesters are in the parking lot protesting the man who victimized her. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, on that note, I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have happier things to talk about. I didn't mean for that to be such a dark show. Some parents might be teaching Black children to hate and hit cops. I hope not. I hope no parents are teaching their children that. But unfortunately, there probably are. I've worked with great parents. I've also worked with terrible parents. So anyway, thank you guys, and have a really good day. I'll see you all later. Thank you so much for joining.